The Newcastle Regional Chamber of Commerce has been baiting council for months over what it sees as a go-slow attitude to development in the city.
There have been instances of people who have come to our city with a view of investing in our city and developments and have walked away.
The Chamber says developers are going to other areas like Maitland and Port Stephens, leaving Newcastle to die. And now relations have become even worse after a weekend meeting here at Town Hall. Chamber and council officers sat down to discuss development in the city, and it seems little was achieved. Greens councillor John Sutton says he was stunned by the Chamber's ignorance.
They all wore their best business suits, but you had the feeling that the diapers were still on underneath.
He says Chamber members were calling for council to butt out of development approval, in effect to alter the democratic process. That's been denied by the Chamber. The two groups meet again soon to try and sort out some sort of compromise. Peter Ryan, NBN News.
The 107-hectare parcel of land along the industrial highway is sitting idle at the moment, but within a few years it could be the site of an ambitious eco-industrial park. The idea is to combine different industries on the site, which can use each other's waste. Profitable reuse replacing costly disposal.
The exciting thing here is that if this were done in Newcastle, it would not only put Newcastle on the map, but it would be something that would attract worldwide attention.
2,000 BHP employees are set to lose their jobs in the year 2002 when changes to steelmaking are introduced. The company says the Eco Park would provide them with employment. It's also seen as leading the future direction of environmentally friendly industry.
But with the current concerns about environmental pollution and so on, I think it's going to be a pattern which will be more and more adopted in the next century. So this is really on the leading edge of the sort of new way of thinking about industrial infrastructure design.
Residents have welcomed the proposal with open arms.
The big thing, of course, is to get the environmental business to the point where the community doesn't have to be so concerned that we're going to get pollution, from industrial activity.
Amanda Bolger, NBN News.
The trip from Rockhampton was always going to be a long haul for the tourists. A 23-6 defeat to Queensland B on Saturday made the trip even longer.
We had some chances. As I look back, I suspect probably in the final analysis they had some chances to add to their totals as well.
Checking in at a local hotel, the Canadians opted against an afternoon training run, instead booking themselves in for a session tomorrow at Merriweather High School. On Wednesday night, Canada meets New South Wales. Despite their disappointing Super 12 series, the Waratahs are working back into form. After winning the State of Union clash against Queensland, they then beat Wales. For both teams, the match at Marathon is a chance for national selection, with an Australia-Canada Test match scheduled for the 29th of June. Jonathan Upton, NBN News. Not even the Knights were allowed onto Marathon Stadium today, but the squad, minus its origin stars, did find firmer ground at Stockton. A niggling knee injury sidelined Brett Grogan, but any doubts about his fitness were laid to rest when the 22-year-old was named in the team to tackle St George on Saturday.
It's just a slight aggravation of the small operation he had a couple of weeks ago.
The best news for the Knights was reserved for the evening training session. Andrew Johns dismissing reports a broken shoulder would force him out for at least 6 weeks. That broken shoulder was instead bad bruising. A final decision on the halfback's fitness will be made on Friday. Meantime, no surprises in the rest of the Knights team to meet the Dragons on Saturday. Brett Grogan moves to the wing to replace the injured Darren Albert, while the Origin stars Jamie Ainscough, Adam Muir and Paul Harrigan are recalled to the starting lineup, much to the delight of Really.
But we do seem to have a problem there when key players are missing and the team just loses their direction and the ability to sustain pressure.
Jonathan Upton, NBN News.
The Falcons have lost the last 3 games on the trot. Sitting just outside the 8, they need a win against the Hawks to keep in touch with the top teams. Coach Tom Wisman has been working the squad hard. The players asked to sweat their way out of the slump in form.
The past 2 weeks we've been putting in the extra time, and it's our jobs. Like I said, we're addressing some things.
A lot of it is getting back to basics like foul shooting. The record against the Hawks at home is good, 13 wins and just 5 losses. The Hawks are below Newcastle on the competition ladder. With that extra workload, the Falcons are trying to keep positive, keeping team spirit high.
Still a lot of laughter, a lot of talk in our practices, in our lives. We still like each other.
Peter Ryan, NBN News.
Business and industry have been the target of a marketing drive in Maitland, council promoting the city as the ideal home for new enterprise. Now council's focusing on tourism to generate more jobs, agreeing last night to impose an $8.20 tourism levy on ratepayers as part of its 1996-97 budget. It'll raise $160,000. Added to an existing budget allocation, it means council will have almost $250,000 to spend promoting Maitland and developing local tourist ventures over the next 12 months. Meantime, Maitland is just one of the centres set to benefit from a fresh New South Wales marketing campaign launched by the state government today. The $9.2 million advertising campaign will promote the Hunter and 17 other tourism regions, with interstate tourists the target audience. Figures released today show almost a third of domestic holidays are now taken in New South Wales.
The customs vessel Delphinus cut an imposing figure alongside most of Newcastle's usual harbour traffic during a brief stopover. Formerly a Victorian fisheries inspection vessel, the Delphinus is customs' latest pursuit vessel.
It stands out from the crowd, but also the vessel can be involved in covert work for customs.
Operating for 3 weeks at a time, sometimes 100 kilometres out to sea, the Delphinus, equipped with long-range radar tracking equipment, can sit below the horizon, out of sight, shadowing other vessels.
The vessel has a top speed around about the 28 knot mark, powered by V12 MTU engines, pushing out at 1,000 horsepower each.
As well as customs duties, the Delphinus has been booked up for the next year by other government marine agencies for fisheries and research work. It's making its way to Brisbane, promoting the Customs Watch program, which relies on the cooperation of the public.
Because they're the eyes and ears for us when we're not in the area. If they can get the information to us, they don't have to be involved. It becomes anonymous information, and we can respond as quick as possible to the areas that we need to be in.
The Avoca Beach nursing home closed about 2 years ago, but firefighters who tackled the blaze in the abandoned building weren't taking any chances that squatters may have taken up residence.
It's an old nursing home that fortunately there was no one in. It's been closed for a number of months now, and fire started on the ground floor and has rapidly spread through it because it's an old building.
A thorough search of its corridors was carried out before the all-clear was given. A caretaker from a nearby cottage had been safely accounted for. Firefighters say the blaze had been deliberately lit and spread quickly. However, they managed to save much of the building. The power had been disconnected from the former nursing home and it's due to be demolished. Andrew Lobb, NBN News.
A great result for bookies. Sonata paid $38.70 and $7.50 for the win. Pretaris Bay second at $4.90. The Quinella paid $388.90 and the trifecta $4,817. South of Sydney and the big one at Rose Hill was race 6, the McKell Cup. A big win. Prince Rupert paid $6.10 and $1.90, and for the places $8.80 and $1.80. The Quinella $122 even, and the trifecta paid $824.70. In Newcastle, race 7 was over 1,600 metres. The winner paid $4.10 and $1.80. Romantic Ace was second at $1.60. Professional third at $2. The Quinella paid $5.20 and the trifecta $49.90. Western Suburbs at Harker Oval is a tough assignment for any visiting team, and right from the outset the Rosellas made their intentions clear. After bombing the first chance, another try nearly slipped away, but Todd Anderson eventually found his feet and Wests had the first points of the match. As the best attacking team in the league, the home side spread the ball at every opportunity. A turn of pace from Jamie Lovegrove presented Brett Cullen with open space. Wests were looking at a cricket score, but the Marlins hit back through John Allinson. A not-so-stylish four-pointer at the other end maintained the home side's advantage. With that, the Bay's defence opened up and West took full advantage, running away to a 74-point victory. A good day for Hunter netball teams in the Inter-District Division 1 competition. Charlestown edged out Illawarra, while flag favourites Newcastle beat Randwick. The Flyers started their match at the National Park Courts in style, opening up a commanding 37-18 lead at the break. A strong overall performance was the backbone of the victory. The win keeps them on top of the Division 1 ladder. And in soccer, one game last night to open round 13 of the NBN League. The Deloraine Eagles too strong for the Wallsend Red Devils, winning 2-0.
The peanut butter poisoning fear has hit the Hunter with a vengeance. News of the national recall causing a frantic reaction.
They seem to be so concerned that we've really been inundated today with phone calls with people wanting to know more information about it.
While there have been reports of local people being affected, it's yet to be confirmed. According to Philip Bird from the Hunter Public Health Unit, it's all been blown out of proportion because the public hasn't been given enough information. He's played down the scare, saying he has grave doubts that peanut butter is actually to blame.
Yes, salmonella can also be due to poor handling practices at manufacturing level. It may not be due to the product itself, but obviously we need to see the results of their further investigations.
The health unit is reassuring consumers that not all peanut butter is off limits.
Particularly most of the craft products and all sanitarian products have not been affected at this stage.
For 22-year-old Peter Scott, the announcement fulfills a lifelong dream. From his beginnings in surf lifesaving, the 22-year-old is one of the youngest members of the Australian kayak team. No one could be prouder than parents John and Leslie. They learnt of the selection on the weekend.
Oh, we were jumping up and down and running around and ringing everybody up.
After competing in the World Championships in the K4s last year, Scott changes to his preferred K2s for Atlanta, the race over 1,000 metres.
I think they're capable of anything, really. It's just a matter of, as he says, his main aim is first to make the final. Once they're there, then they can see how they go then, I suppose.
Scott and veteran teammate Paul Lynch leave for the Olympics next Tuesday. Another sporting honour today, this time for basketballer David Van Dyke. The 209-centimetre giant has been named in the Northern All-Stars team to play their southern counterparts in Melbourne next month.
It's nice to go. I'm going to go down there and try to play hard. It's just nice to be recognised.
Jonathan Upton, NBN News.
Nicholas is the wrung-out divorcee Marlon Hickey, who plays alongside Sergeant Smith and children's presenter Pate Biscuit. Wrung-out contains a blend of stand-up comedy, original songs, mime and dance, as well as a little philosophy and drama.
It's a show that incorporates a lot of physical comedy as well as sort of dramatic, it has a dramatic plot to it.
Having lived in Newcastle some time ago, busking in the Hunter Street Mall, Nicholas looks forward to returning to perform.
20 odd years ago I lived in Cardiff South and Hamilton and Waratah, all at the same time.
After seasons in Western Australia and Adelaide, Wrung-out will be at the Civic Theatre from the 9th to the 13th of July, before moving on to Sydney and Melbourne.
There's been a lot of talk about fixing the Pacific Highway. There's been a lot of talk since Federation. Well, today the talk stops and the action starts.
The first action is to call for expressions of interest in the $180 million Bulahdelah to Kalungaluk freeway. A contractor will be selected in November, with work to start in early 1997, and if all goes according to plan, finished in 1999. The 22-kilometre freeway will replace a horror stretch of the Pacific Highway that's claimed 8 lives and contributed to 250 crashes in the past 5 years. It will eliminate 60 bends and reduce the trip by 20 minutes.
It'll be dual carriageway, it'll be divided road, it'll get rid of those dangerous wooden bends, it'll bypass O'Sullivan's Gap.
Work will be fast-tracked at Brunswick Heads, with tenders called for the $24 million 2-lane bypass. An environmental assessment will also be commissioned so the road can be expanded to 4 lanes by 1999.
They're the first two steps in a $2.2 billion upgrade of the Pacific over 10 years, agreed to earlier this year by the state and federal Labor governments. The federal coalition has honoured that agreement, but has ruled out an additional $5 million for the early completion of the Raymond Terrace bypass. The state government committed $20 million to the project in its May budget.
If you build it, you just don't half build it now and half in 10 years' time.
Richard O'Leary, NBN News. The unchanged team is one of the strongest the Knights have fielded all year. There's still a question mark over Keith Beecham's injured ankle, but he's confident of taking the field. As is Tony Butterfield, whose hand injury isn't as bad as first thought, and Robbie O'Davis, who has 10 stitches above an eye. The Knights play a revitalised Bulldogs outfit at home, but really says his players are on a high after a good win against St George. And he's dismissed suggestions by his predecessor, Saints coach David Waite, that the refereeing performance of Paul McBlain had a bearing on the game.
I thought the score flattered them, frankly. And he should be a little bit more honest.
Really is also concerned about the continuing controversy over talent scouts. The Johns brothers have been linked with several clubs, the Knights already trying to meet North Sydney's big offer to Adam Muir.
Yeah, I think it has immense repercussions, instability.
Meanwhile, the Knights' big off-season buy, Glenn Grief, is certain to get more time this weekend. Really says it was an oversight that his star recruit played for only 16 minutes, but Grief was also sidelined by the blood bin. Richard O'Leary, NBN News.
The humble carrot is a vegetable in demand, but not the Western kind. Farmers are being encouraged to cash in on the Japanese market by growing the Asian variety. Researchers at New South Wales Agriculture imported Asian carrot seeds to sow at its research farm on the Central Coast.
Our trial here show that this variety is very promising in our weather condition.
While Australia already produces quality carrots, fellow researcher Mr. Rui Sarushi says that the Japanese prefer their own kind.
It's mainly because they're used to a certain shape and a size, and our carrots are very long and thin, and they're used more to the squat and different shaped carrot.
Samples of Australian-grown Asian carrots have been sent to Japan and they want more. Researchers say it's now up to farmers to take up the opportunity.
Anyone who wants to grow them and export them, they can do so. And any carrot grower or any vegetable grower can grow them and export them.
Amanda Bolger, NBN News. The streets were awash at about 7:30 after a water pipe burst under a driveway. The force of the water gouged a hole in the concrete slab, allowing the water to escape. It gushed through Margarita Street, Guida Street and Eastern Road, scattering debris through yards and lapping the doorways of homes.
It seems like a pipe had burst just one street away, and as it's above the level of where we are, it's sort of come cascading through people's houses and properties.
A backyard swimming pool was given an instant top-up and a fence was also washed away. Some houses were spared, while others weren't so lucky.
Just on either side of us, of course, I mean, they've had houses, should I say water, that have gone right through their houses. So, I mean, how we sort of missed out on that, I don't know.
The Water Board shut off the flow. Wyong Council engineers moved in to assess the damage and begin the clean-up.
In front of an enthusiastic home crowd, the Blues started where their Origin elders left off last week, racing to an early lead. But in typical Queensland style, the Maroons tried everything to level. Their attempts down the right-hand side touchline almost paid off. Soon after, they went left, and quick hands found their first points of the match. The New South Wales crowd silenced the under-15s, brought the cheering back, a try on the half-time siren, putting the locals in control. Back from the break, the Blues extended their lead before Queensland found space and turned on the entertainment. 18-10 New South Wales, the Blues then put it out of reach. 3 unanswered tries and the match was sealed for the home team, the victory soured by an all-in brawl short of full time. Big hits of another kind in Newcastle today. 16 girls rugby union teams from as far as Sydney converged on the city for a round-robin competition. The tournament was focused on fun, the event also designed to promote the sport. Jonathan Upton, NBN News.
The Hunter Regional Development Organisation has 2 recent success stories. It played a major role in securing more than $3 million for the Hunter Valley Equine Research Centre at Scone and a further $50,000 for a council-based equipment sharing program. Its latest venture, supporting Newcastle Airport's bid for the funding of a major development plan. The organisation's chairman, Peter Morris, says the airport is a critical piece of infrastructure for the area. The plan will cover strategies for growth, management and the development of domestic markets.
We need a non-stop service to Melbourne. There are good company backups and supply of customers there. The Hunter is a great destination to be marketing into the southern parts of Australia, particularly Melbourne.
The funding proposal is with the Federal Department of Transport and Regional Development. A response is expected within the next couple of weeks. If approved, consultants will spend the next 6 months preparing the plan for public discussion. Sarah Griffiths, NBN News. The Wannsee Centre is a far cry from a hospital ward. For those undergoing the rigours of dialysis 3 times per week, it's a chance to relax in a comfortable environment.
There was always a need for a dialysis facility that is away from a hospital. This is the modern trend around the world, that we try and de-institutionalise is the word, I guess, patient care, get it into a community setting.
The completion of Stage 2 of the facility means there are now large training areas for those patients who can use the dialysis equipment at home. The centre's major advantage is that it enables staff involved in the management of more than 200 dialysis patients to use the one site.
It's become a one-stop shop, if you like, for dialysis. They can have their initial education, they can have their early dialysis, they have their training, and then they either take a machine home or they do self-care, all on the one site.
The demand for dialysis is increasing by 10% every year and shows no sign of slowing down. Plans to build patient accommodation are already underway. Sarah Griffiths, NBN News.
BHP could have described it as the annual report it had to have, writing off unproductive operations so it can prepare for a brighter future. But it was largely doom and gloom in its steel sector, with the plant of Newcastle's Long Products division written off.
Blast furnaces, coke ovens, sinter plant, steel making shop, bloom mill. All of it.
That alone cost BHP $222 million on paper. But there were also real running losses in Newcastle, despite the company's overall profit of $1 billion. BHP says there's no future for steel production in Newcastle with the current technology. Its $500 million electric arc furnace upgrade is still at least 6 years from completion, but BHP has moved to reassure workers.
I don't believe that it's a Labor situation any more than it's any other situation. It's not a 1982 or 83 revisited.
BHP has defended its safety record despite 4 people being killed in its Newcastle plant last year. It says its overall performance has improved.
I won't rest happy until it's zero.
It's expected BHP will reveal what changes it'll make to its Newcastle operations at its Results and Prospects seminar in Melbourne next week. NBN will have a full wrap-up of that conference on Monday night. Richard O'Leary, NBN News.
The trip to Belmore Sports Ground is never an easy one. The Roosters discovered that last weekend. The then competition leaders were knocked off their perch in spectacular fashion. After a slow start to the season, the Bulldogs proved they are back in premiership winning form. Determined not to become the next casualty, Newcastle held its final training session in the lead-up to the match this afternoon. Malcolm really confident his Knights are ready for the battle.
I think we're realising now just what we need to do ourselves to win games, and in the past we've been our own worst enemies.
One of those occasions was the Knights' last away game. It was one match they'd rather forget, downed at the hands of the Cowboys. Recent trips to Belmore have been just as bad, 1 win from 5 matches.
What's happened in the past is irrelevant. I'm looking forward to going down there. I think we've a real chance.
All players from last weekend's winning team will back up on Sunday. A victory will consolidate the Knights' position in the top 3. A loss could see them crash to 6th.
Yeah, our training sessions this week have been some of the best we've had all year. I think we're ready to click on the weekend and it should be a good game for us.
Jonathan Upton, NBN News.